This is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and I'm taking a look at a game from the 1970 match, the USSR versus the rest of the world. And this was a game with Bent Larsen with white and Boris Spassky with black. And so kicking things off here, Larsen was very well known for playing goofy openings. You know, he's got the Bird Larsen with the F4, E3, B3, all that kind of stuff. And so he starts off with B3 here. And so now Spassky responds very, I guess very logically. He wants to take control of the center. You know, if white's going to give him the center, he might as well just take it. And so bishop B2, knight C6. And normally white will be playing a move like E3 here and hoping to basically attack the E5 pawn by undermining it and attacking the C6 knight. That's defending it. So E3 would be more standard. But here, white plays C4, and I don't really think there's anything wrong with this move, staking a little claim to the light squares in the center. Black continues developing, very straightforward with knight to F6 here. And this was where Larsen starts playing a little bit too goofy with knight F3. So I think the best move in this situation, knight C3 is okay. Honestly, I think E3 is the best move. And we could see play kind of continue similar to a hedgehog, like a reversed hedgehog, would, you know, for white, maybe D3, although this allows some complications with bishop B4 check. Probably just going to play E3, you know, D3, and just basically continue developing as such, you know, not really trying to fight for an advantage in the opening. But going back here, Larsen here, he plays knight to F3. And so, you know, if you're playing black, I mean, your first candidate move that you're going to analyze has got to be E4. And it looks pretty nice here. After E4, basically, you know, I guess knight D4, it seems to be the best move. Knight E5, I'm not so impressed. The knight actually can get kind of trapped there sometimes, and just, you know, knight D4 makes sense. Now bishop to C5, and another logical move by Spassky, right? I mean, okay, you know, if white wants to keep moving the knight around, acting silly, then black is going to just straightforward develop in the center and try to take control of the center and seize the initiative very early in the opening. So here white took the knight on C6. And, you know, I guess other options, knight C2, although this really looks weird. You know, that's a lot of moves in the opening we're giving away as white. I wouldn't be very happy playing this move for a variety of reasons. One would have to be knight to G4, ideas like, you know, trying to hit F2. It just knight C2 is ugly. So you know, E3 makes the most sense. But again, I mean, it's not free. You know, and black could go ahead and mess up the pawn structure here. Let's just say we go for something like this with black. You know, this bishop is pretty ugly here on B2. And you know, I don't know. I mean, E3 seems to be the best move here. It's definitely worth pointing out. A move like knight E5. I think black maybe should not play this move because of knight to E6. It's kind of a funny discover attack move. You know, white's going to trade off black's active knight. Still, black has knight to B4, and he's going to be picking on some weak squares, but I don't think it's the end of the world. I think white is okay. Maybe just A3 right away. So, okay, back to the game. Here, Larsen, he captured on C6, and Spassky, you know, normally you're supposed to capture with your pawns towards the center. Right? I mean, this is just the general direction you usually want to be going, is towards the center. But in this position, there's a big difference, right? I mean, it's not a normal position. If we're thinking about this, black is already ahead a good bit in development, not to mention he's got this pawn here on E4. Could be pretty annoying for white. And so he decides to capture the D pawn because he opens up his light squared bishop here on C8. Right, and this is going to be huge. You know, that bishop is going to be able to jump in the game right away. He also opens a D file, which he's going to be able to use to attack. Right, so taking with the D pawn here makes a lot of sense. You know, there's a lot of benefits. Taking with the B pawn, on the other hand, okay, we're going to be able to back up our pawn structure and play D5, but you know, that's about it, right? And it's going to be a lot slower. So he takes with the D pawn, and now white plays E3. It's kind of sketchy to play G3. You know, you got to ask yourself, is this move, like, does this even work? This is a sketchy move. There's a lot of ways that black can start trying to pile up the heat on this F2 pawn. I mean, what if he just jumps in right away, right? I mean, D4 is not possible because of the en passant, you know, so that's not even worth considering. E3, let's talk about this move. let's look at some holes in the position. This does not look good. Holes in the position like this, black is just going to be all over this kind of stuff. And I'd be very sketched out if I was playing white here with just all those just problems in the position. So, okay, white doesn't want to play g3. He knows he needs to develop the bishop. He's trying to get castle very quickly. Other choices, maybe just knight to c3. This could have been pretty reasonable. And, if knight here, something like this, I mean, I guess white is even threatening to take on e4, possibly. So it's already quite complicated to play knight c3. I think this was possible, maybe queen to c2 first. But you're going to have to play e3 sometime. If you're trying to castle queenside, you're going to have to play e3 because the bishop is just hitting the pawn here. So, okay, white plays e3. Here, black plays bishop f5. And this isn't terribly difficult to figure out why, right? He's just trying to clamp down on d3. I should mention, just going back a move, if d3 here, I think you're going to run straight into some interesting sacrifices. I'm not sure if these sacrifices work, but they're definitely interesting. You could say e3 here, stuff like this. And I think even better than giving away a piece would just be to play e3. And you basically keep the benefits of sacrificing the piece with the domination of the dark squares without the risk. So d3 is no good. e3 is the move. Bishop f5, stopping d3. Okay, queen c2. This is flexible. We can say that maybe the bishop move would have been a little bit safer. But even still, I don't even think white wants to castle kingside because it's going to be very easy for black to attack. I mean, black can play queen e7. He can castle. He can play h5 and bishop d6, knight g4. I mean, we're basically going to see all of black's pieces going against the kingside. So I don't even think white wants to put his king there. So he plays e3 to stop the bishop, and now he goes queen to c2, and he's 2 moves away from castling, right? Not just knight c3 and castles. So black, queen to e7. Maybe he's thinking, maybe he's thinking of knight to c3. Well, now he's ready to pick off this bishop here if he wants to, which is not a bad idea, right? I mean, this bishop is basically white's best piece. This is a nice diagonal it's on. And so queen e7, we strengthen the e4 pawn. We get ready to also protects your own bishop as well. But here, Larsen, I mean, the guy was nuts. Larsen he's always very creative, right? I mean, I like checking out his games. They don't really hold up so well these days because people are just too accurate in the opening and too well prepared, but they were cool. His style was cool. He played bishop to e2, and he completes his development. I guess, it's not even that easy to castle and knight c3. I mean, what if his castle's queenside, and if here, I mean, there's knight to g4. And this is busted. There's no way to protect f2. You can't even play d4 because black controls the square so much. I mean, it's overloaded. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe this stuff does hold up. There's a pretty sneaky little tactic. This queen f5 check. I hadn't noticed this originally. Queen f5 is pretty sneaky. Maybe this, but it still doesn't even work. Wow, right? I mean, if he takes, you're gonna lose the queen. So wow, Spassky's on point. Queen e7 was no joke. It's a very interesting tactical sequence. I mean, it's logical that this type of stuff doesn't work. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It doesn't work, but that's pretty interesting. It's just that even this plan to just rush the king out of the center is not going to work. White is already in a lot of trouble, and it's only move 8. So queen e7 was really quite on point. White here, bishop to e2. So okay, he's going to try to control the square, take it away. Black castles. And knight c3 is the move here. I mean, this has got to be the best move. Like, there's no doubt. It's not going to be fun to play this position for white because you're down. You got a problem on d3, and it's very easy. in a few moves for black to jump his knight to e5 or c5 and exploit that. So it's not good. This situation is definitely not good for white. But, you know, at least he's going to live to fight on. I mean, knight to c3, you know, I don't see any killer knockout shots yet. Instead, Larsen, he got a little bit too crazy, and he played f4. And so, first, I mean, why did he play f4? Why would you do this? You know, it's like you're already making a lot of pawn moves. You're already way behind development. Why would you make another pawn move? Well, first of all, it's going to take control of the e5 square. So white is going to get a little bit of play there in the center, right? So it's going to be that much more difficult for black to maneuver a knight to d3. Although black still can take the knight to c5, right? So you're going to have to take another square away. You know, it's not going to be that easy. So that's one reason f4. Other than that, you know, it really weakens the e3 square. I mean, this just looks like you just want to sack a piece here. Just, you know, I would be really thinking about that, how to sack a piece on e3. So f4, you know, I think he just went a little bit too crazy with this move. And so why I'm presenting this game here and taking a look is it's very, very instructive what Spassky does next. So he plays knight to g4. You know, a normal automatic developing move, right? I mean, you know, somebody who's not as good as Spassky or whatever. I mean, they would just play rook he8 or something, right? I mean, let's finish the development. We can chill. We can protect the e4 pawn. You know, there's no problem. You know, maybe we could even be ambitious. We could even try to double the rooks on the d file, right? That's nice pressure. That's a good plan. Okay, but that's no way to play the opening, right? Especially when people are playing these types of ridiculous moves that White has been playing. He's neglecting his development. His king's still in the center. He's not even trying to control the center. I mean, he's breaking all of the opening rules. So f4, you know, this is really crossing the line. And so Spassky goes for him. So he plays knight to g4. And let's talk about this, right? I mean, he's threatening to sack a piece. You know, this is the point. If knight to c3, he's going to play bishop takes. I don't think bishop takes here is going to have enough time. Maybe just check. You know, maybe white can get away with sacrificing the queen. I don't know. I don't think so. You know, black is getting some pawns for that. White's king is very in the opening. I don't even think so. So knight c3, you know, probably just sack you could even just sack the knight. Honestly, I mean, this piece sack right here, I mean, you just got two pawns. You're probably going to get one more. And, you know, how on earth is white's king even going to get out of the center? So, okay, knight to g4. We're threatening some piece sacks. You know, that's the first step. What's the second step, right? I mean, what specifically, not to mention you're threatening queen h4 check. This is another thing that's a pretty significant threat. Let's just say knight c3. Just the idea of this queen h4 and weaseling into h3. This is, oof, man. I mean, this could get bad. This could get bad in a hurry. You know, black is getting all of his pieces. Even if he loses a pawn, it might not even matter. I mean, you might be able to just chill. I mean, who cares about the pawn if you're playing for mate, right? So, anyway, just some examples of why knight to g4 was so much better than just a regular rook move here to develop. And so another justifier, you know, is what happens if white tries to defend by taking it. Right? White's defending. It makes sense to exchange pieces, but still some very big problems. Very big problems here. If you castle, you're going to get wamboozled. Right? I mean, this is just freaking me out. Just thinking about playing white here. You know, this is uncomfortable. So, okay, that's the first step. Now, what if you don't castle? What if he plays knight to c3 instead? You're still looking at just a nightmare. I mean, rook d3, just look at the clamp. He's got the two bishops. A lot of weaknesses on these light squares that white cannot defend. You know, just positionally, I mean, it's very busted. Not to mention that your king is completely stuck in the center. Right, this is terrible. h3 is not going to work. You're going to run into some nasty checks. And, you know, this is starting to get messed up. You know, you black can try to sack some rooks, pieces, you know, whatever. This is starting to get messed up. f5 is an easy one, right? So, okay, back to the game. That's why knight to g4 was played. That's kind of the justification. We know he can't play h3 because the queen goes to h4. There's no way to stop with g3. And the queen or the knight is going to be just dominating on f2. That's going to be too much. Not to mention the sacrifices available on e3. I mean, it's just too crazy. So Larsen here, what does our boy do for us? You know, we know knight to c3. This could be pretty sketchy because of the piece sacks, because of the queen h4 and h3 ideas. This is a sketchy move, and it doesn't even solve the problems. I mean, if just rook here, it's not clear what white is going to do still. I mean, it just... Knight c3 seems like a good attempt, but I still think there's the piece sacks. I mean, they just look too attractive. Or queen h4 check. So what Larsen does here, he plays g3. And, you know, how many pawn moves can you make before you lose a game in the opening? Right? This is not good. Another pawn move. Meanwhile, black's been going crazy, dicing it up with his pieces. He's got a lot of open lines, a lot of pressure. Now the piece sacks. I mean, you know, at least we could say this: the piece sacks. You know, even if we just go with this one, it's not going to work, right? The knight doesn't pick up two pawns here. So that's what g3 does. First of all, it stops some of the piece sacks. Second of all, after playing g3, white's ready to play h3 because he doesn't have to worry about queen to h4 check. All right, so it does have 2 points, but you know, nonetheless, it's not really helping the situation with the development and the king in the center. So black plays h5. He's on point. Again, on point again. Bishop takes g7 is a bad time to grab pawns. I mean, just rook h7 or just h4 even. Both moves are probably going to win. Yeah, I mean, just grabbing a pawn here is crazy. So now white is in serious trouble. You know, he could play h4, positional suicide. Black is probably going to play rook h6, rook g6, and this pawn is going to be the weakest. You know, that's going to be a permanent weakness. H4 was playable, but I think it'd be pretty tough for a grandmaster to play this move. I mean, it just is so ugly. Just positional suicide. Not to mention he can sack a piece still. And he's going to be able to keep sacking that piece for a long... I mean, it's like, what do you even do for white? Knight c3, bishop here, check. If he takes it, you got e3. I mean, just look at all the tactics. And it all comes because naturally black has more development. So there's going to be naturally more tactics. So h5 is nice. You know, knight c3, we're just going to go h4. And, I mean, there's some serious questions that need to be answered. So we see h3 by white here. And, okay, h3, you know, fair enough. I mean, you want to kick the knight out. If black went backwards, it seems like knight c3 and white is going to be doing fine. If h4 is just going to respond g4. Looks like white might be okay here. But instead of going backwards, Spassky played h4. And now the game is going to start getting really interesting. The idea with h4, first of all, I mean, we know he can't take the pawn. We can say that pretty comfortably. Well, in the game, he took the knight. And I think he's got to take the knight. I mean, knight c3 is going to take on g3. Now the pawn is pinned. You know, black's up a pawn. He's got a monster attack. I mean, this is too easy. That's going to be too easy. And white still can't even castle because of moves like knight f2. I mean, this is just ridiculously easy to win for black. So he takes the knight. And at first, you know, after pawn takes g3, this was the whole point, is that white's king side is naked here. And black is just trying to jam a rook in there. I mean, he sacked a piece to do it. Although the thing about the piece he sacked, it's almost like he's got a bunch of, you know, an extra bishop and rook. I mean, white's knight, bishop, rook, even his queen, they're not doing anything. And so in this position, after pawn takes g3, well, we know white doesn't want to take because that's just going to be too easy here. He's going to have an open access. You know, moves like g5, we're going to run into check, and g2. Right? So, you know, it's a nice idea, but it's not going to work. So this is what's going on, right? I mean, black he's sacked a piece, and now he's going all out, right? He's taking it hard to the paint. He's going for the win. So we see rook to g1. It's probably the only move. And, well, okay, there's a couple different moves here for black in this position. The main moves you would think about, well, what happens if he moves the bishop, or what if he tries something like queen h4, right? There's a lot of different options in this position. Queen h4 looks very nice. Maybe just bishop to f1, trying to defend. Maybe he can just try to sack and get out of this. There's a couple different options. What black played in the game is rook h1. And this is crazy. Like, why would he play this move? This is totally nuts. I think, if black tries, let's say, rook here, white might even be able to play g5 and shut the queen out, right? And if he can shut the queen out, he might be able to make it out. After rook to h1, the idea is going to be very clear. After rook takes, he's going to play g2, and now white doesn't have time to play g5 to block out the queen, because he's got to worry about this other queen that's about to be made here. So after rook to f1, right? Rook g1, we're going to see check. We're going to see queen h1, and that's going to be too easy. All right, that's game over. So instead of rook g1, Larsen, he tried to play rook to f1. And so I think, if takes, maybe he's got bishop takes, and he's going to try to run away. He's going to try to run to b2. Also, let's say he moves the bishop, then g5, right? So black's got to be on point here. So black just throws the check, moves the king, captures the rook with check, and here white resign. Because after bishop takes, he's going to see bishop takes g4, bishop e2. This is going to be mate here on h1. And if king c1, we're going to see queen e1, leading to mate in a move. So you got to note, in the final position, black had still given away that rook for nothing, for a check. He gave it away for a tempo. So this was the final position here, after black took the rook on f1. In the final position, let's say white is going to take here. White is still up a piece. If you do the math, white is up one clean piece. He's up the knight. Right, so I think the point of this game, first of all, is to show how to capitalize on your opponent's inaccurate moves in the opening. Right, white started out, what was he doing, making all these pawn moves? He wasn't fighting for the center. He left the king there. He broke all the rules. How to take advantage of that with very direct, very principled, straightforward attacking play in the center. And at the end of the game, as black had the advantage, he had to keep attacking. He couldn't retreat with any of his pieces. And even if that meant sacrificing a piece, we can see material is not always the most important thing. There's also the position on the board, the initiative and things like that. So this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and thanks for tuning in.